traditional mandate for institutions actually. So they have strict reporting techniques, strict reporting procedures, and at the same time they have a function. They are expected to create a functional excellence. On the other hand, postmodern consumers are basically looking for symbolic values. So when we talk about postmodern consumer in the postmodern era, we just know that they are fluid, they can easily switch between brands, and also they are more skeptical about the messages they receive from the brands. They are more asking questions and expecting more ethical context. So basically they are looking for more symbolic meanings and at the same time ethical considerations. So for traditional ESG paradigm, we list a lot of context, a lot of presentations here. We know the primary function is compliance and reporting. So the basic traditional mentality is like that. And the brand's role in that to demonstrate functional excellence. And the consumer's role in here is basically sit as a passive consumer and evaluate what they receive. But in the postmodern era, and when we look at the postmodern consumer, the ESG becomes symbolic meaning making. So since the consumers expect symbolic meaning and symbolic congruence between their identity, the brand's main role is to establish moral legitimacy, more than just functional excellence. We're not expecting excellence anymore. So the consumer's role is not passive evaluators anymore, but skeptical co-creators. So the co-creation is more meaningful and important here in the consumer, the postmodern consumers. So they're more skeptical and they want more engagement in the creation. So the desired outcome is not institutional approval anymore, but identity, alignment, and trust.
Microphone, please, for the video.
Oh, okay, sorry. So this brings us to the core purpose. So the core purpose of this study is to explore how ESG communication functions as symbolic tool while brands are communicating with the consumers. But this is in the postmodern era right now. So I just instructed this study with the 3 research questions. The first one is how ESG enables identity construction. The second one is how it builds authenticity and trust. And the third one is which theoretical concepts best explain this procedure. I layered the theoretical context. I just get the context with multi-theoretical lens. So as you see here, we have 5 basic theories, 5 main theories for the consumer culture. The postmodern consumer theory explains the consumer's fragmented context, how they expect hyper-real reality, highly skeptical context. So the symbolic consumption theory explains how consumers give symbolic meanings to the product and how they expect symbolic meanings between brands and themselves, for social values. So the consumer culture theory basically explains identity and meaning-making process, and the signaling theory explains how ESG messages actively functioning between brands and the consumers, and for the trust and legitimacy issues. And the basically moral branding theory gives the ethical context and the ethical layer. So how brands as ethical entities performing their value alignment. So for this research, I made systematic literature review. So with that, within the 2015 and 2025, I just go through the Scopus and the Web of Science records and get basically 221 initial records for in the literature. After cleaning all of the duplications and creating the disciplinary fit and all the context, I finally get 53 articles selected for the systematic review. So after that, I made thematic analysis. For the literature review, we received 5 main pillars of the literature for the ESG, symbolic ESG meaning. So the first theme is ESG and brand authenticity. That gives the ESG signals acts as critical authenticity validators. The second theme is moral identity and trust. That explains the ethical congruence that actively builds consumer trust and authenticity. The symbolic identity alignment explains the ESG narratives that perfectly aligns with the consumer's self-narrative. So self-concept congruency is so important in this issue. So the fourth one is greenwashing and skepticism. So if the consumers sense greenwashing and they just started to act as more skeptical, so if they see any misalignments between the brand's communication and their values, so it creates skepticism. And the last one is digital ESG narratives. So that explains the social media's role actually. So how they, since they expect co-creation, since the consumers can co-create with the social media, so this theme explains how social media affects their expectation. So here we see two main issues here. If the brand's messages are just moderated, and their explicit claims moderated by radical transparency, if they're transparent about their messages, so that gives us more identity congruence and perceived responsibility. So this gives us the advocacy behavior, so brand loyalty, and more of that, beyond that, brand advocacy that brands can achieve. And if, the vice versa, if the brand communication becomes more superficial, and at the same time there's over-communication, too much message arrives to the consumer, so the brand behavior of the consumer can change a little bit, and it leads to the postmodern skepticism. So it triggers more the skepticism. So that the outcome is the accusing the brand of greenwashing, and also that can create a brand backlash. So when we see that digital part, the last theme, we can say that yes, one part, if the brand's actions and the consumer's actions come together, that can create a good sense of brand authenticity and brand trust. So basically, co-constructing brand meaning is so important here. So brands cannot create their own image by themselves. Also, in postmodern era, consumers should also contribute to the process. So basically, when we look at the symbolic ESG interface, the brands should establish ESG not just a reporting tool, but also a communication tool. So, but not over-communication, of course. And if they advance the understanding of value-based process and value-based relationships, they can create the symbolic meanings with the symbolic relationship with the consumer. So the postmodern consumers are more critical in the mechanism, but also they are evaluating their ethical consistency and value resonance. So there's three basic advices can be said to the companies, to the managerial implications. Right? The first one is not just report, to live for it, actually. Okay? So don't just report, don't give the report only, but you have to act as just one player of that situation. So in order to just survive in the postmodern era, you need, as a brand, you need to just act as part of your situation. And the second thing is, if you want to be a part of the relationship with your consumers, it's basically you have to facilitate the expression. So yes, the moral self is so important. So if you express the moral part of the brand communication, we can just manage to survive. And the last one is radical transparency. Since we are just giving a lot of reports and a lot of feedback to the brands, So being transparent is important, but for postmodern consumers, you need to be radically transparent. So the digital spaces are so transparent, so they can reach any data about companies. So being transparent is so important. So lastly, goodbye, lastly. So thank you for your attention, but you need to see that the marketing strategies are just shifting. Yes, ESG is so important, but not just for reporting. Create meaningful, symbolic meanings for consumers, because consumers are not the same consumers anymore. We expect, as consumers, I'm a consumer too, and I expect more things from brands. So more symbolic, more ethic, more moral things they need to create to receive more positive feedback from the consumers and emotional relationship. Thank you for your attention.
I'm really interested about the next steps, to be honest. So we have done this kind of literature review system or research. What are we thinking about right now? So how can we utilize this maybe for future research?
For future research, I plan the qualitative research, and for qualitative, I plan the interviews. I'm planning to do interviews for consumers and also the companies that maintain ESG reports. So I want to compare for 3 layers, like secondary data, and comparing, asking consumers about that reports and showing them asking them how they react. So the next step is to learn what's actually behind that situation, what actually consumers think about it.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. For our next presentation, we have Firas Abdullatif.
Hello everyone, my name is Firas Abdullatif. I'm a master's student at Altınbaş Üniversitesi. And
You can use the microphone.
I need to use it?
Yeah.
Okay. So, as I was saying, I'm a master's student at Altınbaş University. Today I will be talking about the effect of AI-generated brand persona on perceived brand authenticity and consumer trust in Turkey. So basically, these days, AI has been getting faster and being used more and more in our brands, especially these days. And as we can see, people and brands especially, they are trying to use AI to create content, create offers, which is much cheaper, more consistent, and easy to communicate. But what should we ask here is, what would happen if consumers start to know if this brand is using AI and not human to give their persona or to show what they are talking about? Will they keep questioning their sincerity, emotions? Will it be as deep as when we give them from our side? And will that be a difference that will affect the authenticity? And since we know if the brand has its own trust and its own persona, it will help the consumer to trust it even more. And as we can see from the brand, authenticity have, as I said, it's key factors between both of them, the AI usage and of course at the same time the consumer trust. And I chose Turkey because as we can see these days, people, especially in Turkey, they use a lot of to buy through social media, Trendyol or other companies. So it's much heavier, but unfortunately there's not a huge, how can I say, study on the matter. Hopefully there will be in the future. My research problem here is that until now there is not a lot of research that has been happening regarding the consumer and how they would perceive the AI regarding that. So would be a difference in AI, and if customer perceived it as AI generated or human created. And of course, there's not a lot, as I said, explanation or research studies on that in the non-Western context, of course, especially Turkey. And through that, we have three objectives that we will be working on. First, to compare AI-generated and human-created brand persona and perceived authenticity. Secondly, we will be examining the effect, how authenticity will affect the customer trust. Thirdly, how authenticity will have a relationship between the persona origin and the trust itself. Through these objectives, we will be able to create three research questions regarding the effect of the brand. Secondly, it will be showing the relationship between them. Thirdly, how the mediator will be connected between both. So, for my literature review, I tried as much as possible to see what connects between our research. And as we can see in the middle, we have the cluster that shows all the papers or all the research papers that's connected. Some of them are based on different topics. Some are specific for AI-generated persona, for authenticity, and for trust consumer. Some of them are just specific. Other referrals or other parts are just using it as topics, if we can say. So my literature review here, I had three topics. For the first one, it focuses on the brand authenticity and how consumer will perceive it. Will it be credible or consistent? And at the same time, how the consumer will evaluate these brands, depending on the authenticity. The second stream, it focuses on the trust and how it reflects regarding the consumer, how will they trust it? Is it going to be reliable, authentic, or of course, since trust is an important thing, we will be able to know, will the customer be loyal or have a long-term relationship with the brand? For the third stream, of course, we will be talking about AI-generated brand persona. And since there's an increase of AI-generated persona in marketing, we can say that there will be weakening in perception of authenticity because you never know what consumer would look at regarding using AI, and also it will raise concerns about transparency and the human intention regarding that matter. So our gap here, unfortunately, for limitation of experience in Turkey, especially, or all three of them to be in one model. So our gap here, we don't have a model that they combine all three streams together. At the same time, there's not a lot of experimental evidence on brand authenticity and AI generated compared to human created brands. Also, it perceived how consumer trust and the authenticity, especially here in Turkey. So for my theoretical framework, after trying to search for the best theory that can help me in this matter, signaling theory was the best for now. Hopefully there will be other theories, but since the customer doesn't have a lot of information on the brand itself, so they will be able to look at would the brand persona, is it AI generated or human created? If I say, okay, this is AI, will they be looking at it in a different way? So this will be the signal for them to know which part they will be actually looking at. And okay, also regarding the signaling theory, as I said, for both of them to be able to know which one, they will act on that. So also it will show if this company or this brand, if using AI or human created, will they have more sincerity? Will the customer look at it in a different way or change their perspective? Through these theories and the logic behind them, we have AI generated Q signal, lowering human intention. Also, the lower of the human intention, there will be low authenticity, which reduce the customer trust. Also, authenticity will explain an indirect effect through both AI, the generated brand, and the customer trust. And through these three topics, we can maybe have three hypotheses. For the first one, it states that AI generated compared to human-created brand persona leads to lower perceived brand authenticity. For the second hypothesis, it will be talking about or stating that perceived brand authenticity, how it will affect, positively affect the consumer trust. For hypothesis 3, it will state the perceived brand authenticity that mediate the relationship between brand persona and origins of consumer trust. For the methodology, for us to be able to know how to expect for both of them, first we will be using the in-subject experiment. For these two conditions, we will be having two different experiments. Both of them, they will be having the same content, same profile, same brand tone. The only difference between both of them that we will be saying this one is AI generated, this one will be human made or like marketing team, and of course we will be informing all the subjects regarding these things. Every group or every condition, it will be separated to different people. There will be not the same person answering for both of them. And the participants, of course, they will evaluate the brand authenticity and customer trust through some measurements and scales. One of these scales are for the authenticity is more hard, and the other one I was able to find with brand trust is for 2015 and 2004. Okay, and regarding the data analysis that we'll be able to use here is first reliability analysis, then confirmatory factor analysis, in addition for mediation analysis using bootstrapping, and to evaluate this without having any problem, because there will be some misleads or something, we will be having in the end a checkbox that they will be able to say this one was AI generated or human made, so we will be able to at least remove the persona from the calculation or the analysis itself. And the model here, as we can see, it's as simple as that. The model will be basically taking about the AI generated and if it affects the authenticity in a lower perspective, which will also affect the consumer trust in decreasing way. So regarding the managerial implications, if we see in managerial perspective, we see AI are increasing in efficiency, that's for sure, for brands, but still we need human to be looking at the brand itself to at least evaluate any error that would happen. For perceived brand authenticity, we should be managed as strategic, not just something we assume. And for the findings, we need to help the brand itself to communicate and show how to use AI in communication with their consumers. For theoretical part, it will be able to help us more with the signaling theory to broaden its effect and entering the AI branding or AI generating communication. For the contribution for the contextual, this study will help us more to focus on the non-Western area, for example, especially in Turkey, since we will be using it here. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Firas. Do we have any questions, comments?
I do.
Yes.
So what's next for you?
She was about
No, I was going to ask something else.
well, basically, at the moment, I'm trying to do this operation at first. The problem is with just having a brand itself, because I need to create a brand from zero. I don't know if we have any, how can I say, influence from the outside. I can use a known brand. It will take a little bit more time for the trust part, because trust doesn't appear from thin air. So this will be a problem at first, but the more we will have participants, the more we will try to use it. Also, there's during my research and talking to my professors, there's missing variables, if we can say, to make it much more connected. So maybe if we add more variables, it will be better or broaden more, and it will help to open new areas for the theory and the same time for the topic itself. Yeah.
How would you do that?
So, like regarding it will be basically two surveys that will be sent to different part of people. They will be seeing everything regarding this topic. I will have a brand, fiction brand, with let's say side story, and after that we will be giving all the information. Of course, I will say this is an AI created. This is a human created. So for them, in the end, they will have also to check that, okay, this you perceive this as an AI or not, because you know there's a lot of variables that can affect their judgment. So I want to be clear from the start, and for the participant, 200 to 400 participants that they will be like joining this survey, it will be helpful for them, but at the same time it should be clear for all of them, so they don't do something or suggest something that we don't do.
Any other comments? So my question was asked by Dr. Zilal. It was related to how you will implement it. One suggestion I have is having an experimental study is really nice, to be honest. But when you come to the first hypothesis, if you can put it in two hypotheses, it's much better because it is one versus the other. So have it as two separate hypotheses and take a look at that as well. But it is a nice study. If it works out, hopefully it will, and we will see its results. Thank you for asking. Our third presenter is Dr. Murat.
Distinguished chair, distinguished committee's members, the professors, and the participants, I greet you with all my great respect. My name is Murat Altınbaş. I'm PhD in business management. I graduated from Altınbaş Üniversitesi last semester, 2025. Today I will be sharing with you a study that utilized the qualitative finding of my doctoral thesis completed in 2025 under the supervision of Dr. Sahip. The study evaluates whether sectoral digitalization is a cost or inevitable necessity from the perspective of the Turkish jewelry sector. Before I start I'm working for 20 years in the sector in IT perspective, in IT department, so it is my research and another really my job. Turkish sector perspective, where traditional codes are very strong and addresses the pain of transformation and social digitalization vision. As you know, digital transformation with its constantly evolving technological arguments has not become a parameter of survival for 21st century's business management and other processes. Considering the sector operations and process of businesses, it is evident that not every business can respond to this transformation with the same agility and speed. The Turkish jewelry sector, which is focus of our research, is one of the sectors that naturally resists digitalization due to its century-old master and apprentice tradition, the necessity of physically contact with the product, and high cost and priceless value proportion based on entirely on face-to-face trust. There is sometimes a problem of incompatibility between the abstract world of digital technology and the traditional way of sector. Our research has been prepared precisely to shed light
on the reflection of sectoral paradox in this field. As part of my doctoral thesis, the digital transformation dynamics of the Turkish jeweler sector were revealed through the comprehensive quantitative analysis using UTAP-2, one of the most powerful model in technological adaptation and acceptance literature. However, while quantitative research provides a structural and statistical perfect picture of whole, it cannot fully capture the feeling of the human element with that picture. That is the answer to why and how question due its inherent limitation. The main purpose of this study stems not from the inadequacy of the robust quantitative framework we have established, but rather from the need to delve deeper under the guidance of the data. By incorporating the sector's heavy, traditional, social, cultural fabric alongside statistics, the aim is to arrive at a much more holistic and powerful conclusion. Based on our main objective, our research adopted an inductive qualitative research design. Data were obtained from responses to the semi-structured, open-ended question that constitute the qualitative finding of my doctoral thesis. The opinion of 136 professionals from the sector, business owners, managers, and field workers were examined, and large data set ensure that high level of data saturation and representativeness. This collected data was coded using Brown and Clark's thematic analysis, independently of the notations. I would like to share three stirring themes that emerged from this process. The first and strong theme was encountered was the traditional protection reflex. The data show us that the resistance of industry professionals to digitalization is not related to a distance from or unable to use the technology, but rather stem from the belief that digital transformation are incompatible with the serious or private nature of the sector. In jewelry, touching the products and establishing eye contact to build a trust is essential. Participant 24 statement summarized this situation. There are many fake calls that I'm against e-commerce, says the professional. Actually, he is whispering to us that the digital world is unsafe and social media is seriously an entertainment focus. In other words, the first major barrier we face is not technical, but entirely psychological and cultural barrier of trust. The second strong finding took shape under the heading of vision and resource dilemma. When asked about the obstacle to digitalization in the literature, the first answer usually given is high cost. This result was frequently reflected in our data set with expressions such as no budget or software is too expensive. However, upon closer examination, it is seen that the real problem is not a financial, but intellectual capital problem. That is the lack of management. While employees see the lack of budget allocation for digitalization as a resource constraint, the real constraints stem from management viewing digitalization not as a future investment, an unnecessary expense item. Therefore, what the sector needs is not cheaper software, but visionary leaders with high digital literacy. The third and final finding, the innovatable digital feature, perfectly illustrated the major dilemma the industry is facing. Despite strong traditional resistance and lack of the vision we saw in previous days, when we ask participants what will happen in the future, we encountered a surprising clear and futuristic picture. All the industry professionals fear digitalization. They have accepted that is not an irreversible effect. Participant 88 statements actually a vision of the traditional jewelry industry employee, not a technology company executive. The concept of artificial intelligence, real-time data analysis, and especially good and interesting hyper-personalization have already taken root in this industry's mindset. In other words, the industry is aware of hybrid feature of the human factor will decrease and artificial intelligence algorithm will replace the master-apprentice relationship. But it is simple, but does not know how to build a bridge of the sea. The finding of the research strength, the quantitative framework presented by the technology acceptance model. It complements the support the factors of the UTA 2 model with human qualitative concept. The strengths in synthesis show us that digital transformation in traditional sector is not merely an IT project carried out with hardware and software, but challenging cultural change and trust-building process with very deep roots. In light of this finding and synthesis, there is another strategic recommendation can be offered to industry decision makers. First, a change in mindset. A change in mindset. Manager must stop viewing digitalization as merely an IT task involving purchasing software. The transformation is a matter of leadership and vision starting from the top. Secondly, the digitalization of trust. Since our biggest barrier is the fear of fraud and lack of trust, the industry should allocate its limited budget to blockchain-based digital certification and trust-inspiring, transparent, traceable technologies instead of ordinary e-commerce site. Third and the final, instead of abruptly cutting off the customer's center of touch the product experience, physically and digital strategies can be combined. The physical store's experience with the digital speed should be developed and mitigate how it should. Thank you for your time and listening to me. If you have any questions or comments, I'll be happy to hear it.
Yes.
This is my PhD thesis. This is not my PhD thesis. This research has used my PhD thesis quantitative data. This is the new research.
That's a new one.
This is the new one. This will be this is the abstract presentation, and this will be the paper after this preparation.
Can I explain?
Yes.
So, this is
Part of the questionnaire that we've done, in the PhD thesis, we only used quantitative data. These are the open-ended questions, qualitative part of the questionnaire. So we separated it because the PhD thesis just grows so big.
So we eliminated it. This part, we used it as another publication.
I'm trying to understand, so you're talking about digitalization and the goals in Turkey, right?
In general sector, yes.
In jewelry sector, right? So, and you said that the major problem is trust. So how can we solve this? I'm one of them. I came out, I want to touch. When I want to buy something or gold, I would love to go to the store and buy. I'm a good example. So what would you do to convince me?
We don't need to, we don't want to actually,
Okay.
because digitalization in some products cannot be possible for the consumer. So we want to touch it, because if the product is so valuable, if you pay more, you don't want to spend it on digital goods.
Yeah.
So we want to touch it, we want to see it, because it's just to be in the safe side. So our intention, he is working as a jewelry professional. So our aim is to, okay, you cannot digitalize the jewelry. That's the aim actually.
I can add something about it. About 20 years, more than 20 years, I'm dealing with this sector. And always we are asking this question to us, to managers, to marketing teams. How can we solve this trust mechanism?
Yeah.
We can.
As we can.
The answer is no.
The answer is no.
Because consumer behavior and habits really want to touch the goods before buy or select it. So we cannot manage to turn. Maybe we don't have to change this sector to the fully digitalization. But e-commerce sites, especially e-commerce sites, really need to be searched. We are discussing with my supervisor because of we don't understand how they order from internet with a large value product very easily like that. This is the real problem to understand.
I agree.
Sorry, I have also something to say. How we can say no if we didn't try something yet, right?
We try.
We
That's what
tried,
yes, we try.
we tried that.
Actually, a lot of companies are, just a lot of jewelry companies are selling online. So, Altınbaş jewelry is one of them. So, I think even Hepsi Burada is selling gold jewelry. But people are not very comfortable with spending so much money. Even we don't want to spend, we just buy gold from the mobile banking applications, right? We just want to go and get the gold itself and put under our pillows. I think that's the aim. So basically, a lot of brands are trying to sell online, but still a lot of people want to see it, try it, because it's kind of a good that you to see and touch and see on yourself. It's kind of a product like that. So they try, but we don't think they are doing it like a clothing company.
Even for future projection, right? Let's say 10 years ago, I wouldn't be buying a car from abroad, right? Nowadays, we can do that. And we trust that. Sometimes we have dealers just buying cars from abroad and getting to account. Maybe that cannot be changed in the future. Do you think that? From jewelry section.
Before the COVID-19 crisis, all sectors, e-commerce, revenue, not more than 1 million. Today, 1 million approximately today. But if you are selling shoes or something like that, 1 million is a very low.
Yeah.
So if we examine about the future, we have to make segmentation and behavior of the what we are talking about sector. Of course, the general sector will be trustful, really, but the other other sectors can we reach this goal for during 4 or 5 years? We can reach 10 or 20 years.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ma. Thank you for your comments. Our next presentation is by Dr. Bengi Kurtuluş.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for your patience, first of all. It is one of the last two presentations of today. I'm a little bit ill. I have got cold, so sorry for my voice, changing my voice. This is a co-author work, actually. Me, Muzaffer Hocam here, and basically Onur, our PhD graduate, and Yasemin, another PhD graduate of us, prepared this all together. It is similar to Onur's thesis subject. Actually, it's his expertise area, but because he is abroad in a presentation right now, I will be the one who will present it. Our topic is the role of cognitive heuristics in strategic management. So, a conceptual review and a new framework proposal. You guys and I, we are all aware of the illusion of perfect rationality, right? Everybody is expected to behave rationally in the business world. Historically, the strategic management anchored this proposition too often, thinking that human consumers are purely rational, analytical, utility maximizing framework. They are behaving in such a way. Grounded in the classical economics theory, there is also that terminology of Homo economics, Homo economicus, which also assumes that every behavior, human consumer will behave rationally when determining their decisions. You know, the least cost and maximum output will be the main purpose every time. With the existence of that data, lots of data actually. And the errors when we get out of rationality, when we do some behavior, when we conduct our behavior by our intuitions, like heuristics, they are most widely seen as errors, some errors. It is called the error paradigm, labeled by Kahneman, Bazerman, and more. The bias program, pioneered by Tversky and Kahneman, states that highly influential approach frames the mental shortcuts primarily as fundamental flaws. So these mental shortcuts that we name as heuristics were seen as flaws, some mistakes, you know. Eradication over optimization for decades, these irrational deviations attempting to mold leaders into emotionless decision machines. Leaders were seen as emotionless machines, always acting rationally with lots of data in hand. There was a movement from VUCA to BANI, what we don't call as VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. Volatility, the rapid changes in the world, uncertainty, lack of knowledge, lack of future prediction, complexity, the interconnectedness between every data, and ambiguity, lack of clearness in every issue. Within some time, turned into BANI, brittle, anxious, non-linear, incomprehensible. Actually, they claim that everything is not so volatile, it's also collapsing, going to a bad situation by the brittleness word. The arguments went that way. And uncertainty, everything is uncertain, but even worse, everything is creating anxiety, stress within human beings. Complexity turned into non-linearity, which we don't know the causes of every certain items. And ambiguity ended up with incomprehensibleness. So, okay, everything is unknown, but there are lots of data that we have no knowledge about. It's very sad to diagnosing everything. So, a systematic conceptual review we made for that purpose. We did some work on the secondary data. We haven't conducted any primary data search here. We have covered Web of Science, Scopus, PubMed publications, and reached to 235 publications about this topic. We only filtered those Q1, Q2, and SSCI, SCI publications. Then the number was released to 142. And after eliminating clinical psychological studies, 33 core papers were analyzed in the end. First of all, does everybody know what heuristics means? Here in the salon? No?
I don't know.
You don't?
I'm so far away from this man.
Actually, it's basically the mental shortcuts helping individuals to make decisions. Instead of analyzing all the data, the rationality necessitates all alternatives to be evaluated, carefully checked in details, and then having the ultimate optimum outcome. But rational heuristic states that you should also believe in your instincts. At the first look, you may have an instinct about which alternative may be the best. And our study basically argues that leaders also should trust themselves in believing their intuitions, believing their heuristics. We shift to ecological rationality. I will skip this one. Have you heard of this? Prefrontal cortex and the amygdala in our brains. Prefrontal complex is mostly responsible for complex, analytical, and rational thought. But under severe cognitive overload, sometimes we feel like running out of our brain. It makes our prefrontal cortex so busy, so we feel the depletion in that context, PPC, and then the amygdala hijack starts. When PPC reaches exhaustion, amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, anonymously takes over. This is the biological evolution of human's mind. Then we have the intense crisis, reducing panic and threatening to freeze operations. Evolutionary mental shortcuts, those heuristics I just told about, provides us necessary resources to take decisive action. There are many noise factors, as we all know. Whenever we are busy with something, we also have some conflicting messages from around. To cancel those noise and data overload, to eliminate those unnecessary data, we can trust our cognitive heuristics talents. And here are two examples of it. Selective perception. Selective attention or selective perception is one of them. It functions as a critical positive mechanism that filters out overwhelming noise, allowing leaders to hone on immediate existential priorities. And overconfidence, it's so interesting, it's also an asset for the leaders, for humans. Executive overconfidence prevents hesitation and projects uncertainty required to mobilize teams. When we are overconfident, most of the time we are faster to make a decision. That's a good thing. And selective perception and overconfidence works as the catalyzers of heuristics, which supports us in eliminating the chaos, because the world is getting more and more chaotic every single day. These findings are interesting. The first one is not so much interesting. The CEO network. Agile leaders who deploy education and seniority. Leaders with high professional seniority develop highly autonomous experiential heuristics that are more dominant than the younger and less senior professions. We don't have Hari Hoca here anymore, so most probably Hari Hoca will have more, how can I say, so better heuristics, better intuitions than we as the less senior ones have. And cognitive integration studies confirm that female employees, including female employees, frequently demonstrate superior heuristic abilities. Of course, we hear that all the time, you know, as females, we are more emotional and we believe in our instincts more than males. And this is also good for the business life, indeed. So, to sum up, when we compare the two different paradigms, the traditional bias paradigm and modern adaptive heuristics paradigm, we can say that heuristics are seen, those mental shortcuts are seen as pathological irrational errors that need to be corrected. It's seen something as negative in the historical approach, but the modern adaptive heuristic paradigm says that evolutionary mental shortcuts provide us speed and agility. That's what we want in the organizations. Predictable and stable market assumption in the first paradigm, a closed system assumption. But on the modern approach, there's ecosystems containing high uncertainty and complex. There is a movement from VUCA to BANI. Oh, for VUCA and BANI, I think I forgot to. No, I mentioned it. I am not good today, sorry. So reducing decision quality and deviating from the optimum outcome is valid for the first paradigm, but preventing analyze paralysis and triggering taking action is dominant in the second approach. All in all, the leadership focus in the first paradigm says that flawless analytical rationality purged of emotions should be existent. Perfectionist leaders without emotionless perfectionist leader is more preferred here in the first approach. But in the modern approach, situational optimization of cognitive maps and intuitive intelligence is rather promoted. So this paradigm shift moves strategic management from a philosophy of correction to a philosophy of cognitive optimization. And also to sum up, the variational error has definitely proven dysfunctional in modern approach. Something is moving here. Oops, sorry. The danger of perfect rationality, perceiving the leaders, perceiving human beings as analytical perfect creatures is something wrong. And it creates fatal analysis paralysis in critical moments. From the moment of VUCA to BANI, I should tell that VUCA is introduced to our lives after Cold War by the US military service. VUCA approach. As far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong. But after the 2018, some theorists claim that it's not valid anymore, VUCA approach, but rather BANI is more valid. The situations has become even worse, more complex. There is a much more chaotic world. And after those movements, the paradigm has to shift from the BANI paradigm to the heuristics paradigm. Future leadership development must pivot from molding emotionless homo economicus to building upon a neurobehavioral foundation. Leaders should also benefit from this evolutionary moment of the brain. And the ultimate goal should be professional coaching should evaluate an executive's cognitive shortcuts and situational potentials to be harnessed rather than flaws to be destroyed. I suggest you to enjoy those flows. It's called flow as something missing, but it's indeed an asset for you.
Any comments, questions?
So when you were lecturing or presenting, so you were talking about the WUCA and Bunny and then post, era of 2020. So you said we've become like, what is Bunny, is that we've become like.
Spiritual, anxious.
Anxious. So my thinking is that, I have two questions. So I was thinking, I wonder, that has maybe nothing to do with it. I'm thinking, did we ever look at, people started using a lot of, the medicine just to calm you down, right? I wonder, has something, did we look at the use of that medicine after this, 2020, that support, this, hypothesis? I don't know, I'm just making it up. That's what I thought,
We should really check for it actually, because it
There's
seems like there's a
application, right? Are you gonna test somehow?
We have a question.
the relation between Bunny and the higher usage of medicines.
I don't know.
Yeah,
They would say somehow you're claiming to become Bunny, right? So how do you test it? What do you do?
We didn't test it. It's from the literature actually.
Yeah. Do they have anything that they use? I mean, I don't know. I'm so off this literature, I have no clue. From looking at where applied economics, anytime there's somebody throw something, I said, what if? I don't know.
Are there any concrete data showing the movement from Buka to Bunny, hocam? Maybe you know better.
We had a question for the
Yeah, for other speeches we
yes,
have.
yes.
But for the concepts, I'm not sure. I should check once again. And it's the beginning of a new study. We will get into details.
Altınbaş is the head of the Gray Research Institute of Turkey.
Yeah, he's too much into that brain. Thank you for your contribution, hocam.
Any other comments? Can I make a small comment here?
Sure.
So, teaching strategic management specifically and these topics in organizational behavior, when we talk about heuristics, it is actually one of the areas that we talk about because it can cause a huge amount of bias related to how we make decisions in this situation. So my question here is, for this new kind of hypothesis that you're going with or model you're going with, do you think it is something that we can implement in every situation that an executive or a manager is facing, or are you assuming that it could be implemented in specific situations like crises and huge problems that are occurring in this situation? Because if we're talking about crisis, yes, decision making should be really quick. In that situation, yes, implementing the concept of intuition is really important. But for long-term kind of decisions that are not short-term in the situation, don't you need to gather data to make sure that you are making a more logical decision-making in this case?
Yeah, I definitely agree, hocam. It's so clear that you are a management professor. You can think more logical than I do as a marketing professor. Züleyha hocam, it's also an answer to your question. After COVID-19 pandemic, this agility, was so popular because you need to decide very quickly. So that's what, just the second version you said, I totally agree, hocam. I think it's much better to make, to trust our instincts and heuristics during the times of crisis where we need to adjust so quickly. For longer term decisions, I also, as a very rational person, I also believe in the power of rationality, homo economicus assumption. Thank you very much.
For our last presentation, we have Mr. Koray Çakır.
Hello everyone. My name is Koray Çakır. Today we have seen so many any academic studies, which I don't consider myself an academician, I guess. Therefore, I would like to take a psychological take on the markets. This is something that I kind of stole from, let me rephrase, inspired by our tutor, Dr. In the course. She was telling to someone as an idea, maybe we should take a look on this issue, not necessarily on this area, but some alternatives maybe we can find. So therefore, I would like to take a look at not Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but instead maybe Viktor Frankl, logotherapy. Wait. So this will be more like an essay. Let's keep going. It will not take so long. So let's go. So the topic is filling the void and why we shop for meaning. We live in a world where almost anything we want is just a click away. Anyone could think that having this kind of abundance would make us happiest people in the world. But the reality feels a lot different. Despite all these choices, so many of us feel restless, bored, or just plain empty. It's a strange paradox. We have more stuff than ever, but we seem to have less reason to feel truly satisfied and fulfilled. Drama of modern person. To understand and dig deeper into why, we can look at the work of Viktor Frankl. He was a psychiatrist who survived the horrors of Holocaust and realized that what humans need most, crave most, is not actually money or pleasure. It's more like a sense of meaning. If you ever taken a business class or any class, in fact, you probably encountered Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's that famous pyramid suggesting that we need to fulfill the needs such as food and safety before we can even think about finding ourselves or a higher purpose. Viktor Frankl is the father of third school of psychotherapy that comes out of Vienna after Freud and Adler. In the Nazi concentration camps, he noticed that people most likely to survive weren't necessarily the strongest or the best fed. Instead, they were the ones who had a why. Those ones had a reason to live, whether it was a loved one waiting for them or a book they need to finish. He often describes and mentions Nietzsche's famous line, "He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow." This is a very strong line. This is the one line that's summary of logotherapy. It provides that meaning isn't a luxury for the rich. It's the very foundation that keeps us standing. Without it, we fall into what Frankl said, called existential vacuum, something like a deep inner emptiness. So, when we feel that void, our natural instinct is to fill it with something. That something can be anything. This is where modern consumerism steps in. Instead of doing the heavy lifting of figuring out what truly matters to us, we reach for a quick fix, like a medicine. We buy a new phone, a faster car, or a designer jacket because they give us that temporary spark of excitement, a pill that has a vitamins that we need, or we think that we need. Scientists call this a dopamine hit. It feels great for a moment, but it never lasts. Soon enough, we get used to the new toy. The excitement fades, and the empty feelings comes back. This is called hedonic adaptation. So, humans are really weird creatures, and you would like to go back to that feeling again and again and again, and that creates a circle eventually. So we adapt in every situation, and doesn't matter if it's pain or pleasure. Doesn't really matter it's negative or positive. It becomes a never-ending cycle. We feel empty, we buy something to feel better, the high feeling wears off, and then we need to buy something even bigger or more expensive to get the same rush. It's a cycle that's fantastic for corporate profits, but it's exhausting for the human soul and devastating for the planet. So, marketing experts marketing experts have managed to understand this inner emptiness better than anyone. And they really get so much profit on that. Look at how advertising has changed over the years. Years ago, a car advertisement would brag about the engine or the safety ratings. Today, the same ads tell you the car will make you feel free or adventurous. Last week I saw a tweet saying that it's really easy to sell anything to men. For example, a shampoo advertisement. You just say that Ronaldo is buying this and you buy it. That's it. So basically, somehow you make a connection out of that. Companies now these days aren't just selling products anymore. They are selling identities. When you buy a high quality coffee, you aren't just paying for the caffeine, you are buying the feelings that you are part of a creative, successful tribe. Brands have become meaning packages. Instead of building our character through our actions, we try to buy a prepackaged personality from shops. As the next generation of the society, we have to ask ourselves, is this ethical? Is this right to build a brand by making people feel like they are not good enough until they buy what they are selling? So it's really relevant with ESG goals in here, I think. Sure, it might drive sales today, but it builds a toxic relationship based on insecurity. A better, more sustainable path is purpose-driven society. Instead of distracting people from their emptiness, we can build businesses and systems that solve real problems and strengthen communities. Sounds unrealistic maybe, but it can work. Of course, with support. When a company has a proper mission, like protecting our environment and improving public health, it creates a deeper kind of loyalty. People stick with these brands not because they want to get high through shopping, but because they actually believe in values the company stands for. For example, I work in a DFI, like Development Finance Institute. Basically, it works like, as you know, Bank can give you loans for 4%. World Bank, can give you 3.5%, but like you need to complete some sort of sustainable goals, like the ones that UNDP puts for 2030 or etc. It's really like quite a pain for the companies to fulfill all these requirements, but still a good, like, how to say, a positive advantage that you can get over while you continue to do and expand your work. So these two can work together, but external systems can support this idea as well. So this change isn't just nice to have, it's necessary for the planet. An economy built on individuals that only seek pleasure requires us to keep making and throwing things away just to stay high. But an economy based on meaning is different. It can last longer. When people find purpose in their work, their hobbies and their relationships, they don't feel that constant, desperate need to buy things to feel important. In the end, Frankl taught us the happiness can't be chased. It has to happen as a result of doing something meaningful. The same goes for businesses. Profit shouldn't be the only thing we chase. Still, it will be the only, very important thing, but not the only thing. It should be the reward for doing something truly useful for the world. The best brands of the future won't be the ones that fill our houses with more useless stuff, but the ones that help us live more meaningful lives. Thanks for listening. And before you ask, next will be Adlarian. Next will be Adlarian take on this issue. Yeah. And I don't know.
Another question?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Koray. Yes.
That's right.
So this is the end of our session for today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to our presentation.
Hocamın hakkı olsun.
Evet, alıyorum sandalyesiniz. Tamam.
Şimdi neredeyiz?
Right now?
Biz her yerdeyiz.
Işığımız